in this very dire year, which was marked by the fight against COVID-19. This week is quite hallmark because it was starting from the beginning of the pandemic of COVID-19. The whole world, including the SCO members, are living amid lockdowns and different restrictions and limitations of the freedom of movement, and we are certainly lacking the personal communication. Therefore, we have to support and further cooperate in the year of education and jointly overcome the barriers of physical and technological nature. And therefore, we have to raise the bar even higher for the SCO and for education in the 2021. The pandemic certainly hit the education dramatically. Different countries try to adapt to the dramatically changed situation. I'd like to stress that in that connection, the cooperation in the area of education between our countries not only suspends, but has to acquire new impetus. We are embarking on the new innovative technologies, new techniques and methodologies, and a new curriculum. In that context, I would like to note a special role played by the SCO University, which was established by the initiative of Mr. Putin at the SCO summit in Bishkek. SCO University plays an important role in training specialists in the specialties and professions which are interesting for the SCO member states, which facilitate the integration of science and technologies. Quite recently, we had the first meeting of the Coordinating Council of the SCO University, which adopted necessary resolutions in order to facilitate our further work. SCO member states said that the SCO University becomes an important platform for the cooperation among the SCO members in the year of education to deepen and strengthen the cooperation between the universities and to promote joint projects. Yesterday, at the meeting of prime ministers of the SCO members, adopted a plan for 2021 through 2025 to deepen the cooperation among our nations. We are going to cooperate in the area of vocational, higher education, and extracurricular education, exchanging best practices and internship models, taking advantage of the opportunities offered by the SCO University. We're going to set up bilateral contacts between the universities and embark on the joint projects, creating an association of the higher and vocational institutions among the SCO members. Also, there are some joint events aimed at training specialists with the use of digital and IT technologies. Dear participants, amid the pandemic, most of the countries had to close and lock down their universities and schools, and the students have to study remotely. This is true of the universities and schools, and there are well-known problems which certainly challenge the educational models in our countries. But along with these problems and challenges, the new format of education opens up new opportunities in order to improve and to perfect the online education. Our countries rely on the fact that the SCO University will become a pinpoint, will become a platform for the promotion of our joint programs. SCO Association is home to several 100 million young people, and therefore education and work in that area is of top priority for all of us. Our countries in 2018 adopted a special appeal to the youth and a special roadmap to implement it. SCO is going to set up an association of young scientists, will hold and arrange different exhibitions, exchange scientific publications, and will do R&D projects. Therefore, I can tell you that on November 24th through 26th, we had the very first meeting of the Conclave of the Young Scientists, initiated by India, in order to create necessary conditions for the partnership within the SCO. The cooperation along the lines of the SCO University and the Association of the Young Scientists will help us to bring another impetus to our interaction. Dear friends and dear participants, let me assure you that the SCO Secretariat is ready to assist the SCO member states on those programs and on attaining the goals and targets. I wish you every success, new creative and scientific achievements, and I wish every success to the education without borders. Thank you so much, Shirley Amidasavi, for your kind words regarding the SCO University and for stressing its coordinating role. SCO University may become an information and communication platform, a platform for facilitating virtual mobility for the faculty and the students, and for training well-trained and skilled specialists for the structures of our organization. I'd like to tell you that this week will be very busy. The very first day sadly will be dedicated to the analysis of our university, which was set up and created on such a huge geopolitical environment. Tomorrow will be dedicated to the youth component, to the youth cooperation. And we will spend that day here in Moscow, and subsequent days, actually, will be spent in the city of Novosibirsk, the area which is remarkable for its R&D breakthroughs, which actually nurtured COVID-19 vaccine and which more than once hosted SCO Week. I'd like to divert from the protocol, and you will excuse me because we're not only the representatives of our universities, but we are one big family. I would like to pass the floor to the representatives, to the representative of the Russian party, to the deputy head of the Ministry for International Cooperation, Mr. Ganshin. Mr. Ganshin, over to you. Which language are you going to speak, Russian or Chinese? Thank you. I will speak the SCO language. I do think that we have one common language, and this is the language we all understand and will speak. Dear friends, dear colleagues, Mr. John Shuraliyev, everyone who is online, everyone who failed to connect to us, because as John Shuraliyev said in his contribution, within the SCO, we have so many young people who can do all kinds of endeavors that have lots of opportunities. And our university, our education, certainly aim at training necessary staff, necessary labor force, so that the youth could develop the economy in the SCO area. On behalf of the Russian Ministry of Education and Science, on behalf of our administration, I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for your active preparation for this event, which, as I've said in my unofficial contribution, we are keeping up the pace, and this is very important to show to us and to the rest of the world that we are never complacent and that we'll never give up the pace. The week of SCO is certainly connected to the intergovernmental agreements signed between the SCO member states on education. It was signed in 2006. And by 2008, most of the countries ratified this agreement. And this year, Moscow hosted the first week of education, which has become a regular platform for a meeting between the experts and the heads of delegations there. We sat at a round table and we discussed the future, the problems, the challenges, exchanged opinions, and This platform is the most important for the development of education within the SCO. Other 6 weeks have become traditional for the standing experts, rectors, vice chancellors, and it has become an active platform for meeting of our ministers of education. And since 2013, the geography extended. First, we had such meetings in the city of Ufa, which developed the approaches to the joint R&D programs. Then the week of education was hosted in the city of Barnaul, in the city of Belgorod, which has become a traditional site for the youth forum. And starting from 2017, we went beyond the borders of Russia, and the week of education at the top level was held in the city of Dalyan, Dushanbe, and other countries. Our foreign colleagues not only maintained our experience, but also brought in some new practices which contributed to the development of education. The 13th week of education, which will be held from the 1st of December through December 4th, is held under the chairmanship of Russia within the SCO, and for the first time is held online. The first 2 days will be held in Moscow in the premises of the Russian University of People's Friendship, where the leading rectors and ministers, deputy ministers, will discuss the most burning questions in the framework of the plenary sessions and the roundtables. After that, the participants will online move to the city of Novosibirsk, which will host a scientific conference of the SCO University. Today, we cherish and value the cooperation and interaction between the SCO member states on supporting the academia universities which find themselves in very dire conditions. And the faculty and the students had to accommodate for the new formats of education. A gradual restoration of the level of academic mobility is of paramount importance as an integral part of the educational process. We have to keep up the pace of our cooperation on training high-skilled, competent experts capable of meeting global challenges. I express my confidence that this week will facilitate further cooperation between our nations. In the period of chairmanship of the Russian Federation in the SCO, certainly we found ourselves in a very difficult period of time, and certainly we were concerned that the common agenda, including the education, would not be met, and actually, to our surprise, all the items of the agenda were completed, and I extend my gratitude to our partners, to our colleagues. And as I said in China, actually, you brought some wood when we suffered from the cold winter. Thank you so much, and stay healthy. I wish everything the very best to all of you. Thank you so much. You mentioned the city of Barnaul, the Altai University, which has a monument to our SCO University, and quite recently I visited the city of Barnaul, and together with the president of the university, Mr. Zemlyakov, we paid a visit to that monument. We saw the fir trees which grew up ever since they were planted, and I hope that we will extend the number of trees because we are joined by India, Pakistan, and observer nations. I'm pleased to pass the floor to the president of the Russian University of People's Friendship, Mr. Filipov, who is also the rector of the SCO University. Over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to some of you. I'm very happy to welcome all of you at the 13th Education Week of SCO member states, Education Without Borders. The Education Week, as Igor said, is taking place at the time of Russia's presidency in SCO. This is the first time that we are holding it in video conference formats. We have a lot of participants. We have not always had a chance to bring together so many people for our face-to-face events. I would like to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this event, the Secretariat of SCO, the National Education Ministries, and every participant of the 13th Education Week of SCO Member States, Education Without Borders. Thank you very much. Like after the previous weeks, we have a lot of new ideas. There are new forms of cooperation which will be useful for our students, for our youth, for the benefit of our countries. It has become a tradition to say that 2020 has become a very difficult year. And we have had a different environment to get used to. However, this does not mean that we have to change the traditions that we have had for a long time. We should continue the dialogue between students. We should continue our collaboration. We should continue to enrich our cultures, our languages, the languages of the SCO member states. There are multiple limitations associated with the pandemic. There are travel restrictions, and that is relevant to millions of students in different parts of the world, including SCO countries. Many students have faced difficulties associated with distant learning. I belong to the Council of Europe Education Council and many other organizations, and I assure you that this is a big challenge for all parts of the world. At this time, it's very important for us to join our efforts. We have SCO mechanisms that would help us to find most effective ways of delivering education. One mechanism that we can make use of is educational mobility. We have a lot of experience, and there's a backlog of projects that we have implemented in the past between our countries. We have had many. The main project is the SCO University. I want to remind you that this is a networking university. SCO University includes a number of core universities in every SCO country. There are other universities as well in all SCO countries. There is a curricula that has been coordinated, and SCO University aims at implementation of joint training of high-quality specialists. We are using most innovative methodologies and curricula. We focus on the priorities that our countries have set. I must say thank you to Larissa Yefremova, Vice President of Rudian University. She's been very helpful. We are very happy to have her after she's been for a number of years with the Ministry of Education of Russian Federation. She has been working for Россотрудничество. She has been behind the creation of the SCO University. At that time, she was still working for the Education Ministry. Mr. Fursenko, the minister, was fully supportive of this idea and helped to make it a reality. This project is extremely beneficial for many stakeholders. In the first place, it's good for students. We put together master's programs between several universities. Students spend 1 year in one country, then the next year in a different country. In the end, graduates would get degrees from 2 universities in 2 different countries. They are good universities. We work with our colleagues very hard, selecting the very best universities, the universities that become a part of the SCO network. Secondly, This is great for countries. Your master students come to a different country to study for a year. They then go back to their homeland and they have to get a degree there. This is not a kind of master's program when students would go to a different part of the world to never come back. A networking university would allow students to come back to their homeland. And thirdly, it is good because it improves the quality of higher education. Leading universities would issue their degrees to the SCO university students. They coordinate their efforts. They assign professors to those lectures and classes. This is a very interesting project indeed. Mr. Fursenko and Mrs. Yefremova were some of the founders of this project. Rudian University has been one of the core universities for SCO University. SCO University is successful, and we have had over 1,500 graduates that have taken training in the university in 7 different lines of specialization. Those 7 lines have been chosen as priority areas relevant to all our countries. I can say that SCO University is a successful project, and it helps to keep up the level of education in all SCO member states. On June the 30th of this year, despite all the difficulties and hardships, we hosted a session of a coordination council of SCO. After the sessions of heads of state, this was the most important body. We had the session of the Coordination Council of the SCO University. In that session, there were several experts that made presentations, and they stated that it's important to add new universities, to add new SCO countries. We know that some member states have not been participating actively in this work, and now we see that they're willing to make their contribution. Probably those countries and their representatives will speak about it later today. We have decided that within SCO universities, we will try to address the latest challenges that we are facing. We have outlined some new areas of specialization like healthcare, agriculture, international law, and there are several other interesting specializations. There was another important decision that was made in the way of SCO university development. We need to expand our efforts in building joint educational platforms, not only at master's level. We need to focus more on postgraduate studies. We need to do more in the way of issuing dual degrees. We need to exchange our experience. We need to support each other and our universities. Today, universities are in a very difficult situation, and they need all the support for professors and for students. All of them had to switch to new formats of education. We have not expelled any students, and we're not planning to. I can say that our education systems have been able to cope with the challenges associated with the pandemic, and we are thinking of new steps and new measures that we will be implementing for the second-year students. We need to support high level of academic mobility. We need to launch the continuation of academic mobility programs as soon as possible. It would make sense to use the experience of the most successful educational projects in all countries. We need to make best use of digital technologies. We're not going back to the past. Some of the learning programs would rely on digital platforms. As a networking university, SCO University is going to give more opportunities to the students during the entire time of their studies. We can make a lot of use of those digital platforms facing the pandemic. Education is one of the main pillars of stable, sustainable development. Today, we see more stability in the field of education than in many other domains. I hope that this Education Week is going to help us to exchange best practices. We would be able to talk about our experience that we have accumulated in leading universities. We need to disseminate this experience, make all universities aware of what other people are doing. This would be very beneficial for the system of higher education in all member states. This is going to have a good positive impact on development of all universities that are involved in this project. My congratulations to all of you. We continue our tradition. We hold this Education Week of SCO member states. This is great for our countries. This is great for our youth. Thank you very much, Mr. Filippov. This is very inspiring indeed. There are 71 universities in our framework, and in Mr. Filippov's presentation, we heard the keywords: quality, mobility, quality of graduates, benefits for national economies, benefits for affiliated organizations. Mr. Filippov said that we are not going back to the kind of life we lived before COVID-19 pandemic. At SCO, we need to give a good example to the world. We need to demonstrate what we can do against this backdrop. And now we are passing the floor over to the representative of Kazakhstan. I pass the floor to Narbekova Banu Mukataevna, acting director of the Department of Higher Education and Postgraduate Education of the Ministry of Education and Science of Kazakhstan. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I am going to speak on behalf of Mrs. Narbekova. Allow me to welcome all of you and tell you about our efforts in the way of international cooperation, tell you about what we do in the way of transformation of our education system. We see that education becomes much more global and international in nature in today's world. States and universities collaborate and interact. There are very many tools which we can put to use as we go along this path. We see a much higher degree of educational mobility, and that is very typical of SCO University. It really helps to harmonize educational systems in SCO countries. Universities in Kazakhstan have participated in this process since 2009. We have an MOU on collaboration with SCO University. We have a number of bilateral and multilateral agreements on master's programs. Kazakhstan is an active contributor to this process of globalization of higher education. Since 2010, we have joined the Bologna process. And since then, we have launched a structural reform which had a positive impact on the quality of our higher education. Our universities have become integrated into global learning systems. We have a three-level education system: bachelor's, master's, and postgraduate levels. Today, we have quite a lot of interest in adding new things to our curricula. We look carefully at the needs of labor markets, see what today's corporations need and what they expect from university graduates. We are also doing a lot to support our national science. We have had more than 300 scientific research programs. Over 10 years, 17,000 students from Kazakhstan were sent to international universities in partner countries. We have been participating in a number of international programs. We have been offering grants to students from Kazakhstan. Our national universities have quickly adapted to the new realities of COVID-19 pandemic. They are actively using various distant learning platforms. This opens up new opportunities for international students who want to study in Kazakhstan universities. We have launched a new program of grants. We have over 28,000 international students studying in Kazakhstan today. We have a lot of interest in the project for 2 degrees issuance. We think that it would be very good to implement this project in SCO member states. We have several projects that aim at improvement of the quality of studies in our regional universities. 10 universities in Kazakhstan have received international ratings. Kazakhstan National University has made it into the top 200 universities. It has been put in 165th position in that rating. We are open for international cooperation. We have set forth several initiatives for broader collaboration with universities in different parts of the world. We're establishing partnerships with several neighbor state universities. Collaboration within SCO Networking University has to become a good, reliable platform for the Eurasian university education system. This program should go on for many years to come. I would like to say thank you to the organizers of this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You made a very interesting contribution about how the system of higher education is developing in Kazakhstan. We are pleased that the concept of the SCO University was signed in Astana, capital of Kazakhstan, and the intergovernmental agreement on the functioning of that university was also signed in Kazakhstan in the city of Astana. And we do hope that the Ministry of Education of Kazakhstan will also actively support the cooperation between the universities and the SCO University. Thank you so much. Now we're going to Beijing, to the capital of the People's Republic of China, this city where the SCO is hosted. I'm passing the floor to the Director of the Department for International Cooperation and Exchanges of the Ministry of Education of the People's Republic of China, Ms. Liu Xin.
尊敬的贝多夫校长，尊敬的莫罗夫秘书长，
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Secretary Norov,
大家好，很高兴
dear faculty members, friends, I'm very glad to meet you online and to spend together this the 13th week of education, which is called Education Without Borders. On behalf of the Ministry of Education of China, I'd like to express my gratitude and to wish fruitful work to everyone. I do think that the Russian People's of Friendship University and University of Novosibirsk may enjoy my gratitude as well. We have to cooperate further. Our joint programs have to develop further. We have to contribute to that. And we had 19 years of fruitful cooperation, which rests on mutual support and mutual respect.
全国各方
On October 10th, our second meeting was held. It has to be stressed that we are discussing the questions related to stability in the world and further cooperation in that area. How we can contribute to our joint goals. We have to set up a system of security and well-being, including education. We have to work along all the lines in all the areas. We have to cooperate between the SCO members. We have to promote our further cooperation and raise the bar of our interaction. And also we have to extend the area of our cooperation. We have to bring up skilled and professional workforce. Our perennial experience should pinpoint our interaction at different levels, interaction between the universities and systems of education. We hope that we can even deepen our cooperation. The SCO University is a very important structure in that respect. Mr. Jiao Bin, Deputy Minister of Education of China, stressed that we have to cooperate between us in all the areas. We have to pull our efforts together and bring our perspectives and views together. We have to have certain legal foundation so that all the types of international cooperation are evolving amid the pandemic. And in the view of serious changes which are taking place all over the world, we have to bring our efforts together and to adapt for the new types of education. We have to boost the education, the of education. And we also have to develop our own systems in each of our countries. Along with that, we have to share our experience. So, dear friends, dear faculty members, dear delegates, as always, we're ready to cooperate with everyone and to go hand in hand to attain our joint goals. We have to use our efforts in different areas. We have to boost the SCO the SCO University, we have to strengthen our cooperation interaction at the top level and contribute to the development between our universities, contribute to the better friendship and raise the competitiveness of our universities. And most importantly, the SCO member states have to provide necessary training on the basis of what they have already achieved, forging new labor force. I would like to wish the 13th week of education every success in its work. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Liu. You stressed the importance of the security systems for our countries. And for that, we have to train skilled professionals. He also stressed another quite important idea that despite the pandemic of COVID-19, our cooperation cannot stop, but on the contrary, it has to extend and expand. And moreover, you paid attention to the upbringing of the youth, of the young people who are living in our countries through the prism of the common principles of the SCO. In that room, we, representatives of the SCO delegations, we visited this your room more than once, and the canvas behind your back, these are the very wise words which inspire all of us. Thank you so much. And now we are going to the city of Bishkek, Republic of Kyrgyzstan. I'm passing the floor to the Deputy Minister of Education and Science, Mr. Amurov Nurlan. I'm pleased to note that it is back in 2017 that Bishkek hosted the meeting. This is where Mr. Putin spoke about consolidation of our efforts on setting up the SCO University. Mr. Amurov, over to you. Good afternoon, dear delegates of the 13th week of education. I'm very pleased to welcome you and to take part, to attend this meeting for us. This platform
идет китайский перевод русского канала у нас. Нет русского канала.
Сейчас проверим.
Будьте добры, если можно.
There is no Russian translation.
Не волнуйтесь, исправляется.
Извините, я могу продолжить, да?
May I continue? Yes, please. I'm very glad to welcome the delegates of the 13th week of education of the SCO, and this platform certainly is important for the system of higher education of Kyrgyzstan. As far as for several years already, our leading universities are engaged in a joint work with all the universities connected to that platform. This year, the system of vocational education got certain priorities for development until 2025, including the transformation of the higher vocational education by means of providing financial freedom and academic freedom to our universities. And we are introducing the interdisciplinary approach. For instance, IT is merged with medicine, IT is merged with agriculture. This is where we are developing digital agriculturalists. The collaboration between the universities within the SCO helps us to develop new approaches, bringing into the view the modern challenges, including the challenges of COVID-19. Therefore, we have to develop new approaches, new mechanisms, and even new types of cooperation. In the recent years, we witnessed the fact that despite the physical academic mobility, at the same time, by means of digital technologies and high technologies, our universities extended their geography and their scope in terms of how we arrange the academic mobility of the faculty members. These are the teachers and professors from the partner universities are reading their courses online, and we may hold different master classes for the teachers and professors. And we hope and we are confident that the SCO platform will ensure the implementation of new approaches, will help us to exchange the best practices in terms of the practices in order to improve the quality by means of implementing the innovative solutions when training the professionals that could make their contribution to the development of the economies in their own countries and in the economies of the SCO member states. This is a must that the SCO as a platform will create new impetus for the development of higher education by means of promoting innovations and education. Proceeding from that, to conclude my contribution, I'd like to wish all of us and all of you within that week to discuss most burning issues, the exchange of experience, and following that, when we meet next time, certainly we will reach new goals and could develop our education. Thank you so much. I wish you every success. Thank you so much, Mr. Murov. Bishkek, universities of Kyrgyzia have always been the place where we would discuss the new approaches, which at every stage of the development would become most relevant. I do think that this tradition would go on. And saying that, we are going to Pakistan, city of Islamabad. We have never been there as representatives of the SCO, but I hope that Pakistani universities would join the development and functioning of the SCO university. I'm passing the floor to the member of the Commission on the Higher Education of Pakistan, Mr. Fateh Muhammad Mari. Over to you.
Thank you very much. His Excellency Vladimir Norov, the Secretary General of SCO, Honorable Vladimir Filippov, the President and Rector of SCO University, all the dignitaries from the member states, all the participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and I wish that everybody is safe from the current pandemic. On behalf of Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, I welcome the participants to this meeting, and this is 13th SCO Education Week, and this is continuing for the last 13 years, and I'm interested to hear the proceedings and outcomes of this useful discussion today. And I have heard very inspiring comments from the speakers, especially the rector of SCO University and then Secretary General. And I think everyone has rightly said that the challenge at global level is common, which we are facing. And similarly, the knowledge at global level, at regional level, also shared. And then we share the objective of cooperation through SCO, be it economic cooperation, be it cultural cooperation, be it cooperation in higher education, and promoting knowledge, promoting education, promoting skills, promoting research and development. And I'm very happy that SCO has that project of high quality training for the member states, and for this collaboration. I'm sure that this collaboration and this cooperation will benefit the member states, and then benefit the people from the member states. Pakistan, you know, that has over 200 universities, and Pakistan is part of international accreditation accords, and Pakistan, the universities from Pakistan are globally ranked as well. So we have that universities participating in the global arena. Pakistan has as the topic is education without borders. So Pakistan has taken several steps to promote education across borders and across various countries. So Pakistan has its Higher Education Commission of Pakistan has its approved policy of transnational education, which means that universities from other countries can operate in Pakistan, can register students, can collaborate with Pakistani universities, can work together. So there is transnational policy. Of course, there are regulatory processes, but that is there. And then because of this pandemic, everybody has switched to the online education. Pakistan is also facing that challenge and switching towards online and distance education. We are working on our online and distance education policy. And the third thing is that we have revised our research framework. Pakistan allocates some of the resources for higher education. I think it's a reasonably good amount for higher education and research. So the research framework is revised in a way so that there is a global challenge fund, where scientists from Pakistan and the experts and scientists and researchers from other countries, and for this matter, the experts from SCO countries and SCO universities can participate, address a national challenge in Pakistan. So that is one of the initiative, and I can see the opportunity of cooperation and collaboration with the universities from member states of SCO. And then we have another fund which we call Local Challenge Fund, that primarily we focus on the SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals. If the faculty members and experts, they want to participate in any research idea for the local challenges and addressing SDGs, that is there. And then HEC has also established this Global Engagement Office. So through Global Engagement Office, we aim to collaborate with international institutions, with institutions across the SCO countries as well. And the objective is to have student exchanges, as has been said by the number of the colleagues from various countries, that they are interested to have student exchanges. So we also want to do the same. The idea of exchanging students. And similarly, faculty exchanges. I think the faculty members from different countries can participate in a number of activities in other countries, so that they learn from their experiences, and then they share their experiences, and they share their expertise as well. And then there could be joint research projects as well. So that is the idea of global engagement, which we are pursuing. I'm sure that the countries from SCO states would, means the universities from SCO states would also be interested. And we have a number of students from Central Asia, from Afghanistan, from other countries. They come to the universities in Pakistan, study here. And similarly, we have a number of students, they go to various countries, including the countries of SCO, on scholarships, on the funds provided by the host institutions or by the Pakistan, but we go there. And then we have very strong cultural linkages. I think one of the objectives, and I think we will be discussing in some of the sessions about the cultural interaction. And so we know the conference is being hosted by Russia. So we have always been benefited by the poetry of Russia, by the literature of Russia. We like the music of Russia. So I think there's great potential, and I'm delighted to be part of this event. And this is the first time that I have attended this event, but I'm sure that we will be willing to participate and collaborate once again, I'm really grateful to the People's University of Russia and then SCO University of Russia and all other colleagues. They have participated. I look forward to the discussions which will take place during the next sessions, and I'll be interested to see that outcome. I'm sure that this discussion will benefit all states, and once again, I'm thankful to the organizers and I'm thankful to the participants of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Большое спасибо, господин Махри, за
Thank you
теплые...
very much, Mr. Marie. Thank you for the warm words that you said. Thank you for speaking highly of our country, and we are hoping that students from Pakistan will have plenty of opportunities to enjoy our country's culture and the language. You have rightly stated that we have common challenges. Every university and every country is trying to cope with them by itself, but we need to join our efforts to be successful. It was a very interesting point that you are developing new procedures for trans-border educational opportunities. We would love to have Pakistani universities to join international formats. Next year, we are going to make it one of the focuses of the agenda of our permanent working group. Now, let me pass the floor to the representative of Tajikistan. We are going to have a presenter from Dushanbe, the city that I have visited many times. We had many meetings associated with SCO University. I'm now passing the floor to the head of the Department of International Relations in the Ministry of Education and Science of the Republic of Tajikistan, Mr. Kamalzadeh Ikramovich. Over to you, Mr. Kamalzadeh.
Проверьте, пожалуйста, связь.
Would you please check your comm line? We cannot hear you, but that is fine. Communication lines are difficult to understand. They're not like people. We get a weird sound from your side. Your voice comes fully distorted. No, it's not getting any better. There's something wrong with the technology.
Уважаемая Лариса Ивановна, у нас сегодня погода такая дождливая, может, из-за этого?
It's raining today. Maybe that impacts the connectivity. Of course, the mountains and the weather, we can relate to that. I believe our colleagues from Tajikistan wanted to welcome all the participants, and they wanted to share their thoughts on the development of SCO University. Tajikistan is making an excellent contribution to the relations between the member states. Despite the pandemic, we have had many video conferences with many of you. We had a lot of interesting conversations about the development of master's programs and postgraduate programs in SCO universities. Let's give it another try. Maybe this time it works. Mr. Ilham Ikramovich, would you take another try, please? No, the problem persists. The sound is still not good. Maybe you can take some take some time and try to fix your comm line. In the meantime, we are going to open the plenary session, which will deal with transformation of higher education in SCO member states in the conditions of instability. I would like to pass the floor to Vice President of Kazakhstan National University, named after Al-Farabi, Mr. Hikmatov Oskar Kusubekovich. Over to you, Mr. Hikmatov. Will you please unmute your phone? We can see your presentation. Please unmute your mic. We see that you are sharing your screen. Please unmute your microphone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. Allow me to talk about the prospects of SCO University and use of digital platforms. Today, many universities had to go to the next level of technology. SCO University brings together many universities, including 12 universities in Kazakhstan. We are now looking to add new specializations to this cooperation. We believe that we have excellent opportunities for this now that we are using digital platforms for teaching. We have clear challenges that we're all facing today. We see that the level of competition is growing, and we need to develop partner relations within our organization. We need to invite the best professors and try to attract the best students to our universities. COVID-19 pandemic has exposed a lot of challenges, a lot of problems. They are there for all universities, for all our countries. We have been impacted quite severely. In Kazakhstan, we had a lockdown imposed in spring, and we had to switch to distant learning. And at that time, we realized that many of our professors were not capable of using digital platforms. We were not fully equipped with all necessary equipment and infrastructure. At that time, we faced border closure, and there was practically no international academic mobility. Students and professors could not travel. We realized that we did not have enough content to offer to the students via distant learning platforms. We also realized that we had a serious gap between the students who are located centrally and those who live in far away locations. Students in bigger cities were at advantage compared to the students living in small places where they did not have high quality internet connections. The system has proven to be not flexible enough. And it was clear that we needed to have new procedures for training and for student evaluation. We had to think of new criteria for evaluations. One challenge that we faced was lack of local IT platforms. We had a number of different tasks that we had to fulfill, and we had to import equipment from Russian Federation. We see that higher education is becoming more international. COVID-19 pandemic has brought about new circumstances. Students cannot travel. They have to use technology to take online classes. This is the reality that we have to get used to. This is relevant to all our universities. Education as a service is delivered in a different way, and we see quite a few new trends. Professors have to adapt to new situation. They have to realize that they are teaching another generation of students, young people with different expectations, with different needs. The new trends that we see make it necessary to make changes to the way we teach. And we believe that this experience is going to be valuable for all of us SCO University. We can share our experience of using internet programs. We want to create a digital ecosystem. Like I said, there are new generations of students that come to our universities. They have different expectations, and we have to approach them differently. We have what we call a blended approach to teaching. The form of education is changing, and we have to make adjustments to the general requirements that we have for our professors. The level of digital skills that our professors had is not sufficient in today's situation. Since 2014, we started offering online programs in our universities. We launched an open education platform. There are 32 universities that are connected to this platform in Kazakhstan. There's one organization on that platform that offers the so-called inclusive education program. We believe that there is a good future for this online platform. We know that there are digital education platforms in most SCO countries, in Russia, in China, and in a number of other countries. Online training programs make it possible for students to take classes from international professors. There are new opportunities for additional training and retraining programs for SCO countries. We think that it would make sense to introduce some kind of a certification program for those online programs offered by different SCO universities. We want to have an integrated learning platform that would bring together different modules. This should help us to address different aspects of education. We need to create a platform that would be open for debates on different educational topics. Professors need to be able to communicate. And of course, they need to use technology for that communication. If they can't do that, they cannot improve their skills. SCO Digital University can host many online programs that will be available to the entire network of universities. There are more than 100 universities in this ecosystem. Every university can develop its own online programs. Coordination Expert Council is going to review those digital resources and recommend them for use. There are different ways to market those platforms and training programs. We can offer training programs for different levels of students, for different categories of citizens. We have made a number of forecasts of where our platforms will be going. We understand that digital platforms and digital services will be growing very fast, and we will be using more hardware and software to enhance this process. We may witness the arrival of new educational formats, and we believe that SCO educational programs are going to have quite a lot of followers. We believe that there is demand for this format and for this collaboration. I believe that together we can meet the challenges of today's world. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hikmetov. The idea of building a digital university for SCO is an idea that we want to support, and we want to develop it in many years to come. This is something that has become the necessity of today's world. We all want to work in that direction, and we also want to continue our face-to-face programs. We are hosting this Education Week, Education Without Borders, in the format of a video conference. We continue our cooperation, and we can communicate in virtual space. We are knowledgeable about computer technologies, and we need to create mixed training programs for our students. I have a suggestion. If you don't have an objection, I think we should create a working group that would focus on development of the digital university concept. If Al-Farabi and Rudan University can take charge of this, I'm sure we can make time and we can set up another video conference to talk about this. Thank you very much. I think that this was very interesting indeed. Now, I would like to once again try to pass the floor to head of the Department of International Relations of the Ministry of Education and Science of Republic of Tajikistan, Mr. Ilhom Kamalzadeh. Thank you very much. Can I speak now? Now we can hear you well. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Larissa, Mr. Deputy Chairman of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, I am happy to welcome all participants of the 13th Education Week of SCO member states. I'm very happy to be with you today, and I have the honor of passing you the greetings of our Minister of Education. I would like to wish all of you the best of success. Since its inception, Shanghai Cooperation Organization has been an organization that helps our countries to make headway in the field of education. The efforts of SCO are truly comprehensive, and this 13th Education Week of SCO member states is just one line of work amongst many. We in the Ministry of Education and Science of Tajikistan are happy to make our contribution to this initiative. This is part of the One Belt, One Road strategy for us. We see strong integration processes that bring us to the new higher level of collaboration.
And therefore, we have to create extra channels and platforms for our interaction and cooperation. One of such tools can be the international working groups, which are capable of updating and creating the methodological aids for the technological cooperation between our universities. It is very important to note that regular meetings within that week is recognized within the SCO and beyond. Therefore, creating joint R&D centers of the SCO in the premises of the partner universities of the SCO and other universities will contribute to the intercultural dialogue or exchanges between the faculty and the students. It will also contribute to the mutual enrichment of our languages and exchange of the customs and cultural values. Another mechanism which may contribute to the SCO development is the support of the international academic mobility, as was said by Mr. Filipov in his contribution. Dear colleagues, as is known, very serious and fundamental transformations are taking place in the international affairs. The economic and social realities are undergoing certain changes. Therefore, the efficient and joint cooperation for the sake of education are coming for. The 13th week of education will become a platform, a site where we will all discuss further measures to strengthen our interaction on the way to the further development of the litigation, which would comply with and meet the requirements of the rapidly changing world. To conclude my remarks, I would like to congratulate everyone on the 13th week of education of the SCO. I wish every success to all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kamalzadeh. In your contribution, you stressed the importance of setting up the R&D institutes within the SCO university. We have to focus on the development of our science, of our joint scientific and other projects. And thank you so much. Seeing that we are passing the floor to China, to the city of Dalyan. This is in that very city. In the Dalyan University, we once had our week of education. I'd like to pass the floor to my friend, Mr. Liu Hundi, rector of Dalyan University of Foreign Languages. Over to you. Esteemed Mr. Filipov, Ms. Yefremova, dear heads of delegations, dear participants, I'd like to send my best regards from China. I'm glad that today we have such an opportunity to communicate, although we cannot meet offline. We have the privilege and honor to attend this remarkable event. Let me share my screen. For more than 20 years, the SCO is playing a key constructive role for Eurasia and we are strengthening our ties in policy and economy, in security, in other spheres. And therefore, we are setting up a new format for international relations, resting on the transparency, mutual respect. Speaking about the development of our relations, we are extending our cooperation bilaterally and multilaterally. 12 years have passed ever since the SCO University was set up, and sadly, our university is also guided by the Shanghai spirit. And all the universities, members of our association, also stick to that very spirit. Thanks to our administration and leadership, we made a very long journey. We enjoyed the support. I mean that the SCO University was supported by the government of the People's Republic of China. 20 partner universities now are implementing the programs of international MA programs in 7 areas. We are providing scholarships and other types of support for the students. Besides, all in all, throughout that period of time, we have developed a whole range of efficient cooperation mechanisms. For instance, we are participating in a number of SCO events, and in the last 8 years, those 20 partner universities held multiple working meetings, seminars, and scientific conferences. We held a whole range of successful works and projects, and throughout that period of time, we coined very efficient cooperation mechanisms. In particular, we signed more than 50 agreements within that period of time aimed at the implementation of joint programs. We brought together 30 partner universities from 4 SCO member states, including the research on the regional studies on the renewables, environment, economics, IT technologies. And we see sustainable growth in terms of the number of projects and number of students trained. Sadly, most of the students are interested in the renewables, environment, and economics. For those years, each of the SCO countries train more than 900 people. So 591 Chinese students get educated abroad every year, and we interact along the lines of different R&D projects in different spheres. For instance, we set up a joint lab to do research by multiple SCO universities, and it welcomes the postgraduate students, and it welcomes different interns. At the same time, we are developing different projects within Belt and Road Initiative. SCO has created a digital platform to interact with the Chinese partner universities. We can create an efficient mechanism for the research, for the strategic interaction between the universities. We may support each other in that development. Besides, especially amid the pandemic, we have to help each other, extend the hand of assistance to each other. We are in the same boat, so therefore we have to charter those waters together. The Chinese universities provided support to the foreign students. The Chinese chancellors and rectors sent their letters of support to their peers, expressing the intent to strengthen our friendship and cooperation. Also, we donated medical masks to our colleagues and other PPEs. This year, to a big degree, the pandemic certainly hit the interaction between our universities. We now are facing a dramatic challenge. In particular, it turned out that we are lacking joint programs, and therefore the Chinese government held an online conference, which was attended by the Deputy Minister of Education of China. And this conference noted that we go on with the online development of the programs. We have provided free access to the high-quality educational resources, and also we are running a common Internet plus education system. Internet plus education, this is a single platform of common access to the international high-quality educational resources. We are providing broad-scale training for the professors and their students in the area of IT technologies, cyber technologies. We are also reshaping the kind of curriculum which we are offering within our universities. In future, certainly we have to speed up and expedite the merger between the online technologies and the classical educational models. The SCO University can become a platform for such a merger. This way, it will help us in doing the reform of the education in general. All the mechanisms would be reshaped. And further on, after the pandemic is over, we will come up with a totally new system of education, embracing all the stages of education. And therefore, we will create a broad range of resources which may help us in promoting the reform of the system of education. This is true for the learning of the Chinese language. A deep integration of the cyber technologies and education will dramatically reshape all the elements of the educational system, which will result in the reconstruction of the traditional views of the education. And many historical processes will, in fact, be reset. Step by step, it will bring up a new ecosystem, which can be called Internet plus education. And this system will embrace all the SCO members, because this is our common goal. This concludes my remarks. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Liu. The main statements and bullet points are obvious. So first of all, continuous cooperation. This is what you have shown on the presentation. Creating a common platform in the SCO University afterwards, other members will join this initiative. And this UID internet plus education internet for everyone, this is a very important strategic position. But speaking about what I liked most in your presentation, this is this very statement that we are in the same boat and you have to be able to assist each other. I think that this is the most important thing. Thank you so much, Ms. Liu. And I hope that we will visit you in the city of Dalyan and we'll welcome you in Moscow. Thank you so much. And we're going to the city of Bishkek, Kyrgyz State University of Construction, Transportation and Architecture, named after Isanov. I'm passing the floor to Mr. Abdikalikov Akimbek. Can you please tell us the position of the Kyrgyzstan universities? Thank you so much, Ms. Yefremova. Good afternoon, dear organizers, dear participants in the 13th week of education of the SCO, Education Without Borders. COVID-19 as a pandemic sadly affected all the spheres of our life, including the education. The universities locked down and went on quarantine and embarked on the distance learning technologies. We still had to embark on the online platforms, which I will not name, amid the COVID-19, amid the lockdown. And in the framework of the SCO University, the classes are going on. The MA students who entered our university can study in their own universities, getting the necessary classes remotely, online. And I may note the interaction between the Altai University, Kazakh National University, and our University of the Construction and Transportation. We are part of the dual certificate program. Our university is the leader in terms of providing IT technologies education. We are called on to further integrate the education and to improve the academic mobility. The dual certificate, as was said by Mr. Filipov, helps the internships for the MA students within the SCO University. Since the year 2009, we started enrolling the students, and the SCO University is functional in the Republic of Kyrgyzstan ever since. We did some work on creating a development of the SCO University. Just like you noted in your contribution, the SCO University includes 78 Chinese universities, the universities of Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Russia. In 2018, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and India joined the SCO University. The training of professionals within the SCO University is done in the top priority areas of the economic, political, and cultural cooperation between the SCO areas. First of all, we are providing necessary training in IT technologies, energy, ecology, regional studies, and education. Ever since the SCO University was set up, Kyrgyzstan actually started providing necessary courses in 5 subjects. Now, actually, we added the 6th one. The SCO activities are aimed at addressing the following objectives. First of all, to extend the student exchange between the MA students, to increase the academic and R&D cooperation, implementation of the new IT technologies and programs to provide necessary quality of training of the graduates and recognition of the graduation certificates. The students are admitted following the agreed quotas for the SCO university, and it complies with the fees and duties paid by the universities into the SCO university. Their education is being funded from the budget of the SCO university. For the results of the education, the student would get the certificate of the university where he spent most of his years, at least 60%, or 2 years. At a time, with your active support, we developed a certificate which recognizes the education obtained in the partner university. As I already said, we are now training skilled professionals in 6 areas with the certificates which are recognized in all the SCO universities. The Kyrgyz State University for Construction, Transportation, and Architecture is spearheading the training in IT technologies. Also, we may find in the same area the universities Kyrgyz Russian Slavic University, Kyrgyz State Technical University, etc. We signed a multilateral agreement with 35 universities of the SCO Network University.
Here you can see some of the outcomes of our work between 2010 and 2020. We have sent 56 master students to Russian universities. We have also received a number of students from partner countries. We have issued 12 certificates and 8 dual degrees. We are developing joint curricula for those students who eventually are going to get those dual degrees. We have one university that has been designated to be the main university in the field of energy studies. Contracts have been signed to support cooperation between this university and 2 other universities that have the same specialty. This chart shows you academic mobility of the master students in this field. 14 students have been sent out to study in other SCO countries' universities. Now, another field of specialization, environmental studies. Again, we have a university in Orsk that has been designated as the main university in this field. It has signed contracts with 25 different universities with the same specialization. This chart gives you an idea of the students' mobility. 57 master students have been sent to study in universities of different countries, in Shanghai Cooperation Organization countries. Next area of specialization is regional studies. The University of Bishkek has been designated as the main university in this field. It has partnership agreements with Kyrgyz National University, named after Basiligin, and Orsk State University, as well as Kyrgyz State University, named after Arabayev. 67 students have been sent to study in different SCO countries, and we have accommodated a number of students in our main university. Next area, economics. Kyrgyz National University, named after Belasygin, has been appointed to be the coordinating authority for this field of specialization. This university has partnership agreements with Orsk State University and Kyrgyz National Construction University. They are offering training in economics. We have received a lot of support from the Altai University, and we have also received a number of students from Altai University in our universities. This is a chart on students' mobility. You can see the number of students that we sent to other countries and the number of students that we have received. Now, teaching is the next area of specialization. The core university is Kyrgyz State University, named after Arabayev. It takes care of all the coordination between all the teaching universities in the country. This chart gives you the idea of the dynamics of the student mobility. As you can see, the numbers are rather low. 2 students have received degrees. This chart gives you the overall picture of students' mobility in all fields of specialization between 2010 and 2020. The overall number of master students that we have sent out to study abroad was 220. We have received 18 students, master students. For dual degree programs, we have received 16 students. We have plans to expand our online training programs. We are talking to our partner universities from SCO. We are talking about the courses that professors from Novosibirsk and Altai University can offer to our students. This chart gives you the summary of our collaboration. It includes information on some of the intentions that we have for further collaboration. We need to add other programs to the master level, having in mind distant learning technologies. And we also want to do more in the way of dual degree issuance. We want to offer retraining programs to the professors, and those training programs should comply with ISO 9001 standard. We believe that together we can do a good project on accreditation of master's programs. In recent years, we have had a number of independent reviews done by international agencies. We had people from a German accreditation agency that has reviewed the work of our universities. And we believe that participation in international rating programs is good for our universities. Thank you very much for your presentation. This is an interesting idea to have international accreditation for master's programs. I think nobody would object against that. I think we should weigh up everything, how we can do that in line with our national legislations, whether it would make better sense to use bilateral format or whether we should think of something multilateral. Now, I would like to take us back to Dushanbe, and I want to pass the floor to the president of Tajikistan National University, Mr. Khushvaktzada Kabiljon Khushvakht. Larissa, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to be with you in this meeting. The 13th Education Week of Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states, Education Without Borders, has received full support from the Tajikistan National University. We had a session of the permanent working group of SCO countries on education. We had a number of round table on training of students. We have developed a roadmap for 2018-2019. We analyzed the outputs of the projects that have already been implemented. We have also made our input in development of proposals for further development of SCO University. This is a great venue to talk about our collaboration. This is also a venue where we can develop plans for the future. We appreciate that very much. This Education Week is taking place at a very special time. Today, we see high level of economic, political, and epidemiological instability in most of the world. And this suggests that we should adapt to the new conditions. Shanghai Cooperation Organization never stops its search for a balance, for trade-offs in economics, in security, and in the political sphere. We are looking at the challenges that are common to all of us. We're looking at the challenges associated with our international agenda. Our system of higher education should focus on our main assets, on our people. And to be relevant, we need to be flexible and adapt to the new conditions. We know that Russia is planning to launch a strategic leadership program. We know that this is going to include a very significant digital component. I think all SCO countries need to participate in the discussion of such programs. I think we would all benefit from improved digital skills. We realize that we need to bring up the level of IT studies. It is essential that we should provide sufficient funding to the universities that will have the responsibility for development of IT skills. Today, we have to operate against the backdrop of COVID-19 pandemic. We must share the best practices that we develop in our universities. The pandemic has strongly impacted the process of teaching. We have to organize the teaching process differently compared to the way we worked in the past. Every university is trying new things. Every university is building new models of teaching. We try to put in place a combination of traditional studies and use of internet for distant learning. In several universities, they continued to offer face-to-face classes instead of going into the distant learning mode. Of course, they had to take special measures to keep students and professors out of harm's way. At the same time, we realized that distant learning technologies must also be used. We had limited experience in that, and we need to do more in that area, regardless of the scale at which we are going to use these technologies in the future. We still have some obstacles in the way of distant learning. We have quite a lot of older professors, and the number of students is growing much faster than the number of professors. We have quite a lot of younger assistant professors, and they have to carry an increased burden in their line of work. We need to do more in the way of using information technologies. The level of digital skills amongst the faculty must be taken to a higher level. Students also need to get more training in use of information technologies. Of course, we need communication networks that should be able to support the needs of distant learning systems. We certainly would be very interested in finding out more about the experience of our colleagues from other SCO countries, and it's very important that we have a venue at which we can discuss such issues. Thank you very much, Mr. President. You have rightly stated that we need to talk about the best practices. We need to learn from each other. We all work in different conditions. The level of ICT in our universities is different. You're right. Students and postgraduates, students have better and higher IT skills than many of the professors. I think this has to change, and we should help each other. We should set up video conferences and talk about ways of improving the situation. In conclusion of the plenary session, I would like to draw some conclusions. I have a small presentation that I want to share with you. Many people who spoke today agreed in one thing. We work in different countries, but we have a feeling that before we came to speak at this video conference, we had a number of discussions and decided what we want to focus on in our presentations. However, that was not the case. This is telling me that over 12 years of our collaboration, Shanghai Cooperation Organization has taught us to understand, respect, and trust each other. This is an atmosphere that we want to create in our universities as well. There are 6 countries that have initially joined SCO University project. Then India and Pakistan joined this initiative. Even if borders do not open up, we need to do more in including universities in India and in Pakistan in our projects. Several people said today that we have been quite successful in 7 priority areas. We have coordinated them in 2008 at our meeting in Astana in Kazakhstan, when our ministers have signed the concept of SCO university development. Then we added teaching and economics to that list of 5 areas of specialization. This year, China and several other countries came up with an initiative to do more, to add new areas of specialization. Healthcare is one of those areas. This is something that we have not talked about earlier. We have not thought that the COVID-19 pandemic would stay with us for such a long time. We realize, however, that we have to find common ways of addressing the urgent needs of today's world. We need to do more in the field of healthcare studies. We need to do more in the field of nuclear studies. Food security and food supply is extremely important. We know how difficult the situation is in Africa. We need to be able to train students in agricultural fields. Law is another area where we can do a lot together. All our countries have national systems of legislation, but there are a lot of international legal acts. International law is something that we need to study profoundly in our universities. But there is more to it. There are quite a lot of areas in the field of law that should be addressed. I think we should do more to study these areas in our universities.
As international journalists, for instance, all in all, we can be criticized individually, but the SCO sadly is being envied at every stage and in every area. We are not criticizing ourselves in terms of education and science, but we need our own journalists, the journalists who are prepared by us, who would be very sensitive to the cultures of our countries, who can combat fake news. And there are lots of fake and distorted information on the internet. So there is an objective we have to attain. We have to extend the list of areas where we can offer MA programs or BA programs, and certainly the postdoc programs. Mr. Filipov, in his contribution, said that all in all, the Russian universities accommodated more than 2,000 foreign students from the SCO countries. And this is the tradition which we have to follow. Ms. Liu spoke about the situation in China. Every year, the number of foreign students increase. And there are more and more Russian students who actually go to China and who are admitted to the SCO university. We have to develop this area along the lines of our universities. But we have to engage the employers to the training, the employers who are going to make orders for their specific enterprises and companies. As I said, our objective is to extend the SCO university by means of 2 countries. These are the expert reviews during the crisis. We are all familiar with that. We discussed that in our countries. But we have to pay attention to these expert reviews, and we have to consolidate our efforts in the area of digitalization, virtual academic mobility, one by one, each of us, individually. Anyway, in this global world of education, we have to do something. But if we are complacent, we will not do anything. But if we sit in one boat, as Ms. Liu has said, and assist each other, then the SCO will attain better results in their education. On that slide, I would like to tell you about the main decisions offered by the Russian universities amid the pandemic. First of all, we have to offer blended learnings. Within the SCO, we have to finance our regulations, what actually is allowed in one country, what is not allowed in the other country. What has been brought to the attention of our governments that the blended learning would give opportunities for our students. Most importantly, we speak about digitalization, we speak about creating digital courses, but we have to pay more attention to the quality of the education which we are providing online. If we're not speaking about the online quality, then we will lose, we'll be on the losing side. And this is in the subsequent years that we will notice these defeats. Next area is about the mobility. I'm grateful to the representatives of Kazakhstan and China who, during the first wave of the pandemic, offered these very options for cooperation, and we're going to live in that framework in the years to come. Sadly, we have to bet on the offline mobility of students and the faculty as well. Still, offline education would be the backbone of the education, but as not related to digital, it would act as an addition which will help and rescue us during force majeure and emergency situations. Very often we are lacking time when we are just going from one country to another country. We lose too much time. Then medical health care. And it's been mentioned by China that medical health care and well-being of students and the faculty are of top priority for us. What security we may arrange in our campuses will determine the interest shown by foreign students to our national universities. The way out of the situation is about the development of the domestic internationalization or internationalization at home. We have to discuss more what we mean by internationalization at home within the SCO and in our SCO university. The best practices of the Russian universities showcased during the pandemic, we all understand that until summer, we'll have to live in such a mixed mode, but globalization is not over with that. In 2020, the city of Barnaul kick-started a big scientific project, Turk-Mongolian World of the Big Altai. In 2020, my colleagues from Belgorod saw the very first graduates in pedagogical university along with their colleagues from Kyrgyzstan. In 2021, the university named after Akmula, a management in education program would be launched. This is our Ufa University, and it cooperates with Kazakhstan University since March 2020. Following the example of St. Petersburg University Leti, a whole range of webinars and TV bridges and online meetings were held. Moscow State Linguistic University is the Center for Regional Studies, along with the Chinese colleagues, added more hours for Russian language instruction within its MA program. That's a very interesting methodological approach. And certainly, we have to pay special attention to these programs which I have shown in my presentation. The best practices of the Russian universities amid the COVID-19 pandemic show that we all have hotlines. We all are thinking about safety and security, about the social support for the foreign students. And most importantly, we now are thinking about how to motivate the students, the foreign ones among them, how to motivate them during the online education. This is something the psychologists have to think over. We're engaging foreign partners for the adaptation of our graduates. We are appealing to the business companies who are looking forward to the graduates in their organizations. We arrange for the consultations of the senior students online. As I said, we're developing the online virtual academic mobility and remote homing of the educational material to the students. These are the main activities done by the Russian People's Friendship University in order to support the foreign students. We created a digital model of preparatory department. This is one of the parts of the digital SCO university. When our colleague from Kazakhstan spoke, he also said that we can offer an aggregated approach to digitalize the SCO environment and our university. The main activities which we held online. First of all, this is about the meeting of our national rectors, the meetings of the coordinating council of the SCO university, the role-play game of the SCO, which brought together the students from the MA programs of the SCO university. And quite recently, 2 weeks ago, Belgorod hosted the 5th Youth Forum of the SCO universities, which brought together more than 400 participants from 7 countries. Among the hallmark events, we can also note another tradition. These are our students who, along with the faculty, are writing their own books and making their own projects. A student from Tajikistan wrote a book on the role of the SCO in providing security, along with his colleagues from Tajikistan and the Russian People's Friendship University faculty. This initiative was then supported in 2019 by the Moscow State Linguistic University, publishing a thesis on the SCO cooperation. Let's continue that practice. Here we see the dynamics starting from 2010, when, following the approval of the concept, we embarked on the launch of the common educational programs. Within that time, the Russian Federation offered 2,000 seats in the SCO university. But certainly, we value the quality of training for our universities, and certainly not all the 2,000 students managed to get to the very end, lacking to perform to the best standards approved in the city of Brno. So it means that our MA thesis commissions are very strict. It means that we are very particular and very demanding in terms of selecting only the best who may be eligible for the dual certificates. Let me sum it up. Each of us sadly got prepared in our own respected countries, and we did not exchange any phone calls. But what we have to start doing starting from tomorrow, first of all, this is about the development of the main areas and tools for digitalization of the SCO university. And we have to create online platforms for the implementation of the joint educational programs. We have to develop mechanisms and programs of the virtual academic mobility. We have to develop the propositions and mechanisms to facilitate the distance learning courses in Russian, Chinese, and English. As far as we're going to use 3 languages in our training, in our instruction, we have to develop the guidelines as to how to interact with the employers. We have to build the propositions to how to implement joint postdoc programs, and we have to discuss BA programs and dual certificates. The SCO University allows for that, and we have to create a unified, mutually recognized system of quality assurance to provide for the overall accreditation of our MA programs. I just think that we now saw a very good start of our meeting. Present were the Ministers of Education, the representative of the Secretary General of the SCO, and lots of universities were connected to the beginning of the week of education. Tomorrow, the Russian Federation will hold a national meeting of rectors of the SCO universities. We're going to discuss joint ideas, and tomorrow we'll also have a joint roundtable. Please engage your students, and December 3rd and 4th will move to the capital of the Russian science, the city of Novosibirsk, where the Siberian office of the Russian Academy of Sciences is located. This is where we're going to discuss the areas which we promote within the SCO University. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for being with us. And as our colleague from Tajikistan has said, let's stay healthy. The virus will not defeat us because the virus is helpless, especially when we are all together. Thank you so much. Anyone wants to add something? Yes, please. Yes, please. Esteemed Ms. Yefremov, dear friends, as the curator of the SCO Secretariat in charge of the education, I'd like to make several comments on that remarkable event which has taken place, the official opening of the 13th week of education of the SCO. First of all, I'd like to reiterate the interest and aspiration of the SCO Secretariat, which was noted in the words of welcome by Mr. Norov. We are going to support the activity of your organization in that area, and like to appreciate the efforts of the Russian Federation. Thank you for successful presidency in the SCO in this very dire year. At the same time, I'd like to support the Republic of Tajikistan, who are taking over a relay from you and who are going to work in compliance with the objectives which we're all facing. I'd like to notify you that a Moscow summit took place, and the Moscow Declaration confirmed the aspiration of the SCO member states to stick to the cultural and educational cooperation. As was noted yesterday, the prime ministers and heads of the governments approved the action plan for 2021-2025 with the focus on the cooperation in the area of education. I'd like to note the following. The SCO University is important in the sense that it bearing in mind the changes and the challenges which we're facing, tries to adapt itself to that. In the Moscow Declaration, the prime ministers of our countries paid attention to 2 things: healthcare including the COVID-19 fight and agriculture. Digital agronomists, which were mentioned. So these areas are very important. And Mr. President Xi in his presentation said that the People's Republic of China will train 600 students within 3 years and dispatch them to the SCO countries. These are the areas where we can cooperate and work very well. Certainly, I'd like to welcome India and Pakistan joining our SCO family. Therefore, we very efficiently may engage the potential of the SCO University. And this is not by accident that on June 30th, that the very first meeting of the Coordinating Council of the SCO University took place, which will become a coordinating facility to facilitate our work further. Dear friends, dear colleagues, thank you so much for this very good beginning, and we'll extend our assistance to you. Thank you so much. Let's work together. Thank you so much for speaking on behalf of the SCO Secretariat. Thank you for wrapping it up. We feel the support of the Secretariat, support extended by all its employees responsible for the humanitarian cooperation. I do think that this cooperation will always be there on the table. Our family becomes bigger and bigger, admitting new families, and when the family becomes bigger, it means that our traditions would also be extended, and our strength lies in this very fact. Thank you so much, and see you again.